The news broke today. Steph Curry's MRI came back that there's no structural damage. That's the good news. The bad news, the Golden State Warriors are going to be missing Curry for at least 2 games. Who needs to step up on today's Locked On Warriors?
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is the good word, everyone? Thanks for making us your first listen of every day. Live show. We're free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. You can also stream us on YouTube. If you like the show, we very much appreciate the thumbs up and supporting us any way you can. And that's just giving us a free subscribe. It's the easiest thing to do in the world. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is game time. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Charlie Walter, formerly at 95.7 The Game. That is the flagship for the Golden State Warriors. Covered the team there and covered their championship run in 21-22 for CBS News Bay Area, call letters KPIX. Co-host today, Matt Kolsky, back on the show. Was formerly with me at 95.7 The Game. You can hear him now from time to time on KNBR. On the show today, the injury bug. It's gotten the Golden State Warriors. It's DeAnthony Melton. More importantly, very importantly, most importantly, it is Steph Curry, who's going to be missing, keyword, at least 2 games. What does this mean? Who needs to step up? The second scorer this season. Have we figured out who that's going to be? Or is it going to be back and forth? And Draymond Green, riding the pine in the second half. Why did he ride the pine? Does it mean anything moving forward? Kolsky, what's going on? How we doing, my guy?
Ooh, that's a lot. A lot of things you just listed off that we need to deal with. And yeah, none more important than the left ankle of one Wardell Stephen Curry. Left ankle, I think.
The sprained ankle. So 2 Warriors players hurt, as we mentioned, Melton, Curry. One of them happens to be the best player, one of the best players in basketball history and the best player on the Warriors of all time. So Steph Curry's going to miss at least 2 games. That's the news. MRI revealed nothing serious from the sprained ankle. Suffered that sprained ankle in the fourth quarter of the Clippers game, was not able to return. Silver lining is both of the games he will miss is against the New Orleans Pelicans, who, based on the way they played the Blazers, if you like the transitive property, Pelicans aren't playing great basketball right now. They lost their last game to the Blazers by 20. They'll be missing DeJounte Murray in the game. So if there's ever a time for this injury to happen, it's now. There's never a time for this injury to happen. That's the thing. I hope that the evaluation that comes out on Friday says that Curry's good, he's ready to go on Saturday, and that this was all just a precautionary, you have back-to-back games, you may as well give him a week off and have him suit up on Saturday. But this is all about the vibes moving forward because it's got to be these 2 games. It cannot turn into 3 games, 4 games, whatever it may be. And we heard at least 2 games. So you worried about this, or is it just what I said beforehand, that the Warriors are resting them due to where they sit in the season and where they sit in the week with games?
A few things. First of all, 10 seconds on DeAnthony Melton. I think this back is just going to be a thing all year. So, it's a deep team. He'll take some games off. I think that's just going to be on and off all season with DeAnthony Melton. As far as Steph, I don't know if you know this, but I do share one significant trait with Wardell, Stephen Curry, and it is the unbelievable propensity to sprain my ankles. And the thing about spraining your ankles literally in the triple digits times in your life is you do know ankle sprains. So once Steve Kerr told us at the presser last night, Steph said it was mild to moderate. I believe it's mild to moderate. You know what I mean? Like the guy, you just know what it feels like, and I could see it in his face on the bench after the first twist when he was like, all right, this is one of those that if I just don't take my shoe off and lace it a little tighter and get back in there with the adrenaline, I can ice it tomorrow. And then the second one, you could tell right away, he was like, damn it, this is going to cost me a few games. But it wasn't there was never like a, oh no, it wasn't a high ankle sprain. Those look different when they roll. So I never thought this was going to be a long-term injury. I think 2 games is hopeful. I wouldn't expect to see him Saturday, but I think 3 or 4 is reasonable. And I know you said you don't want it to be 3 games, 4 games, but you were just counting upward. What you really don't want is it for this to start to stretch on in a deeply concerning way, right? You don't want this to become 3 weeks.
We don't have to let it linger. Is that what it is? We don't want it to linger.
And that's why it's also better to take an extra game or 2 now to make sure it's not ready to roll again the next time he steps on the floor. As far as what this means for the team, I actually think, and I would love for somebody smarter and more connected to do some research on this, but I've always kind of felt like when you lose your guy for less than 5 games, it can be kind of a nice galvanizing thing. And if you don't play, a really good team playing well, it can actually play in your favor. It can get other guys rolling. I mean, we've talked about the struggles of Jonathan Kuminga early on, although he was pretty good on Sunday. We've talked about.
Oh, I thought their 21-22 title year, that was huge for Jordan Poole, right? That's where he emerged.
Yeah.
There were some guys, that was his time.
It's the perfect example.
35 a night when Curry or whoever would miss games, and they were winning their fair share,
Exactly. So you're not as good a team, quite obviously, with Steph Curry off the floor. But I think, they have enough depth, and it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity, especially for guys who might feel like they haven't played as much as they'd like to in the first few.
So when someone gets injured, like let's put this in Curry's perspective right now. The NBA, the way that they always look at injuries from a holistic standpoint is if one player goes down, the superstar, whatever it may be, the way that they're looking at the Warriors right now, Steph Curry goes down, it's season over, right? But what team, like the Oklahoma City Thunder, their goals crash and burn too if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes down. Maybe not as extreme, but what team can survive an injury? So the critics out there, me stumbling for the last 15 seconds trying to find an elegant way to say this, the critics out there that say, I don't trust the Warriors because Steph Curry is aging. He's, prone to injuries at this stage of his career. They can't sustain it. Like, what team can sustain chronic injuries throughout a season? Any team in the NBA right now?
Nobody can lose their best play. The Celtics would be interesting without Jason Tatum, but nobody else is even close. I mean, the Knicks, everyone loves what they did this offseason, right? If Jalen Brunson doesn't play, they're screwed. Philly adds Paul George, tremendous stuff. If Joel Embiid is not healthy in the playoffs, they're not a contender. So certainly nobody in the league keeps the same contender status. Boston Celtics are the overwhelming favorite probably right now. I haven't checked the odds. I'd imagine they are. And if they lose their number one guy, I'd still give them a fighting chance in the Eastern Conference. But they're certainly no longer overwhelming favorites. That's the nature of sports. Any team that loses its best player is unlikely to be as good. So I agree with you. It's a little overblown, but I do think when you talk about how it ends for Steph Curry, and I don't even necessarily mean his career ends entirely, but how Steph Curry ceases to be one of the top 10 players in the league, I think is the most likely way for that to happen is for little bumps and bruises and nicks and injuries to just break his body down. And that gets more likely the older he gets. So I understand that point, that it's more of a concern with Steph than, say, Shai, right? But certainly the Thunder are equally up a creek if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes down as the Warriors without Steph Curry.
Anyone. anyone is struggling in that situation. But who can the Warriors rely on? Who's going to step up? Who's the most important Golden State Warrior over the next couple of games with Steph Curry missing? At least a couple of games. And we're hoping it's just the two, and he's back ready to go on Saturday. But that's the big news in Warriors land right now. Steph Curry, sprained ankle. MRI comes back. It says no structural damage, nothing too serious, but they will be missing him for a couple of games. Who's stepping in and stepping up? We're talking about it coming up. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and it's all consolidated in one place. So when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and you can do it all on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. That's if you win your first $5 bet. Can you take like a minus 600 money line for that $5 bet? I need to know now. FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so life happens fast in the NBA, because the Warriors' leading scorer is now hurt, and it went from numbers, right? Depth. How are we going to get all these guys on the floor? We're 3 games in, 2 are already missing. Warriors' leading scorer hurt. The second leading scorer, at least who I thought it was going to be, is now not playing like he's going to be the second leading scorer. And the guy that was once a second leading scorer in an NBA Finals is now playing like the second leading scorer again. If you're catching my drift, I thought Jonathan Kuminga was going to be the guy that stepped up, and this was going to be his moment to be that scoring punch. But after last game, man, it's not that I'm wishy-washy. I just get the facts in real time, and I make my judgments game to game. And my judgment watching Andrew Wiggins put up 20, put up 29, put up 10 with 13 rebounds is that Andrew Wiggins is playing better basketball than Jonathan Kuminga, and he's your guy. He is your main guy these next 2 games. He's got to be an alpha. I know it pains you to say it, but it's just we all have eyeballs.
Well, I think you're conflating.
And it changes game to game. I mean, we could come on the next show and I could say.
Well, that's the problem. It does change game to game for you, Chuck. So listen, here's where I'm at on this. There's no doubt that Andrew Wiggins is playing better basketball than Jonathan Kuminga, right? I mean, anybody can see that. So far in 3 basketball games in the regular season, Andrew Wiggins is clearly playing better. I will also say I keep trying to find a way to say this right. I don't think Jonathan Kuminga has been put in the best situations for him to succeed. And I think also it's
Dude, he had 6 wide open threes. He hit one of them, right?
Yeah, he's not shooting great from 3, but that's really not the thing that's going to determine. I mean, look, if Jonathan Kuminga can develop a 3-point shot,
game though, right? It has to be a part of his game if he wants. I mean, he's the one that's setting the bar for himself, saying that he wants to be a max player, right?
Yeah, and if he wants to be a max player, he's going to have to shoot the 3, but he's not Buddy Hield today. So if the plan is having him spot up outside the 3-point line all the time, first of all, I guarantee that's not the plan. Second of all, it's not going to work very well. And I just don't think, and look, my suspicion is if you had a candid conversation with Steve Kerr, he would say, it's not my flipping job to worry about Jonathan Kuminga. It's my job to win basketball games, right? And he's not wrong about that. I still believe the best way to win the most basketball games this year and in the next years is to get the best out of Jonathan Kuminga. And I believe to do that is going to require some adjustment. They're not doing that right now. That said, Steph Curry going down requires significant adjustment anyway. And I would argue if you want Wiggins to be the alpha, that's fine with me. I would point to some past situations where he's been asked to be the alpha, and that has not gone very well. I would submit that whether or not Wiggins is the alpha, if you want to win basketball games while Steph Curry is hurt, you're going to have to get Jonathan Kuminga going, at least on offense. You're going to have to get him better than 12 points a game. And one way to do that would be to let him stay in the game when he is actually playing well, which is not what's been happening so far. So you're right. Wiggins has been better. You're right. He's the obvious go-to guy with Steph going down based on what we've seen through 3 games. But if they don't get Kuminga going too, it doesn't matter. There's not enough offense on this team removing Steph Curry if Kuminga's not a big part of it.
Yeah, after that last game, there was a lot of people in the comments saying, trade Jonathan Kuminga. And look, the YouTube chat rooms and the Reddit boards out there, that's not the 100% general consensus, but there were a lot of people coming out saying, he just doesn't fit in the system. This team's all about flow, all about spacing, all about connectivity, movement, things that maybe, he's better off in a better system, isolation. How would you respond to people that think that and say that?
I would say he's the sort of player that has to learn how to play in this system because he came here as a teenager who had played basketball for less than 10 years. And it's obvious that this sort of basketball does not come as naturally to Jonathan Kuminga as it does to somebody like Draymond Green. Okay? I'm not debating that. I also think it's undebatable that Jonathan Kuminga is the best athlete that the Warriors have seen since Baron Davis's prime, and that he has the opportunity to be a central.
Iggy was pretty athletic, man.
Not by the time he got here. Nothing like Kuminga. Not even close, Chuck. I love Andre Iguodala. He did fit better than Kuminga. He did play this type of basketball naturally, going all the way back to Arizona. He might have been that sort of athlete at Arizona and in Philly. By the time he got here, no way. Kuminga is a top 15 athlete in the league. The guy has speed, strength, and explosiveness that just doesn't come around very often. And I don't think that this franchise, and I don't know exactly who's to blame, Monte Ellis was very athletic, but not as athletic as Jonathan Kuminga. Again, I'm not hating on any of these guys. Monte Ellis was a light in the dark for the Warriors franchise, and he'll always be a Warriors. But Kuminga is different. And if it was me, I would have committed more resources and taken more lumps in an effort to get him up to speed, rather than benching him every time he's not in the right place. I just don't think he's been able to get comfortable. And I hope that would happen this year, and I still think it will. But when you do that sort of thing, there's also risk. Like, I could be wrong. He might never come together for him. I just don't think he's been given the best opportunity for it to come together to this point in his career. That's my only point about him. And really, honestly, regardless of any of that stuff, they need him now.
They need him, and who's gonna take his spot? If Wiggins, especially
Nobody.
If he's shooting guard, like who realistically is going to? In years past, Kuminga could dip down to. Even last year, though, he was playing 18-plus minutes just about every single night. But
only after he got in a fight with the head coach, right? I mean, this is the thing. And maybe advocating for himself again is the right decision. I don't know what it is, but playing better would sure help. And maybe even more than playing better. And this he did do on Sunday. Making sure your effort is visible in rebounding and defense. And I'm not saying fake it, really show effort, but there's something about the loud effort of guys like Brandon Pajemski that endears them to this franchise. And that's all it takes to do that is the effort. It doesn't cost you anything. So that's the thing he most needs to do to stay on the floor. And once he stays on the floor, I really do think it'll come together. We saw a lot of it last season. He's still very young.
we got a very, very good take here. Jason Richardson.
Jay Rich, yeah. But that's right around the same time with Barron.
Richardson's son. I think he's playing at Michigan State here soon.
Actually, that's before Barron. That's before Barron. So I think it's still Barron was also, dude. I mean, maybe by the time he got to the Warriors, not quite as much, but he still had that dunk on AK-47. Like Jay Rich, Barron, that's the kind of insane, fractional, even in the NBA athlete that Jonathan Kuminga is.
All right, so Andrew Wiggins has been playing pretty good basketball, clear by his 29 points to lead the Golden State Warriors in his last game. Can he do it this upcoming 2-game stretch against the New Orleans Pelicans? Both those games at Chase Center, both those games will not feature Steph Curry, and at least one will not feature DeAnthony Melton. Draymond Green did not have a great game. Coach's actions, which speak louder than my words. Let's talk about that, what that means, deciphering the riddle on Locked On Warriors. All right, so let's talk about one of my favorite apps in the game. It is the Gametime app. One of my favorite things about it is A, it's free. B, when you download the app, there's a way to see your seat in a panoramic fashion. So you can actually act like you're sitting at the seat, 360 view. You know exactly where you're sitting and the potential obstacles that can come into play at whatever sporting event you're at. Not only that, but the cheaper tickets get, the closer you get to game time. Meaning if you're running a little bit late, you don't have tickets yet, but you have plans to go to the game, skip the box office and download the Gametime app. Also, the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is game time. All right, so Golden State Warriors lose their last game by 8 points. I think it was 112-104 to the LA Clippers, and Draymond Green was nowhere to be found in the second half of the game. I don't know if it was like a rumor that was going on Twitter, or if someone maybe said it egregiously on the broadcast. I don't know, but I thought originally I heard Saul thought knee injury. Something to do with his knee, maybe some soreness, whatever. That makes sense why Draymond Green's not playing down the stretch of a basketball game that Steph Curry's not playing in. Steve Kerr said, no, we just went with the group that was playing well. Simple as that. They just went with the group that was playing well, and he wasn't strong. Played under 27 minutes, 2 points, 2 assists, 5 rebounds, missed his only 2 field goal attempts, turned the ball over twice, one of them really bad, and had some bad mistakes on both ends. And you talk about Andrew Wiggins being a player where like you want to see his impact. You want to see his blueprint on a game. I mean, is there a more prime example than Draymond Green of someone that you want to know he's out there? You want to feel his presence. 27 minutes. I didn't even know he played 27 minutes. It didn't seem like he was on the floor that much. Thoughts on how he's played through 3 NBA games this season?
I think he's mostly, it's 3 games. I thought the first 2 games he looked like Draymond. I thought he was playing like garbage on Sunday, and I'm still shocked that he didn't play down the stretch. Is there a level of bad Steph Curry could play for 3 quarters that would lead you to bench him down the stretch?
Never.
No, there's no circumstance. I would have thought, and look, this is not the first time Steve Kerr's done this, but it always sounds weird when he says we went with a group that was playing well. First of all, you weren't playing that well. A mediocre Clippers team was beating you.
Buddy Hield was like 4 of 18 from the floor. Kuminga wasn't playing the game by any means. Pajemski couldn't hit a shot. Moody didn't do anything. No one played well.
All the guys that were playing instead of Draymond down the stretch, I guess they had more than 0 points, but they weren't
the 3 guys that played well.
Yeah, but even like nobody played great. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like one of those situations where you go down 20 with the starters and the reserves lead you back and you got to stick with them. That's not what happened. So I don't totally believe Steve Kerr. And also the tone the way he said it was a little, it felt like a shot at Draymond. He was kind of like, well, no, nothing to it. We just went with a group that was playing well. I was like, oh, okay. First of all, they weren't playing great. And second of all, I would think that Draymond is of the level that even if he's having a bad game, the sort of things he can do for you down the stretch mean enough, and he can still do them even after a bad game. Like, I don't know. That's how I would think of it with certainly any normal star. Now, I'll grant you, Draymond is not a normal star.
No, I brought up the word star on a Locked On NBA podcast that aired on this network maybe like 2 weeks ago, and I got laughed off the show. They laughed at me. They said star.
Whoever laughed at you is an idiot, because Draymond Green is a star by every conceivable definition of the word. He is a multiple all-star. He is a future Hall of Famer, and literally everybody, including those idiots that laughed you off the podcast, all care about every single thing that happens to him. I guarantee they tweeted when he got a technical foul in the first game of the year. So to suggest he's not a star is absurd. But he's not a normal star. And he's not a guy that like, I guess you could make the argument the reason you put Steph Curry in the game, even if he's stinking it up that night, is because he might hit 6 threes in a row at any moment, and that could win you the game. Draymond doesn't have that sort of ability to do something for you down the stretch, but he is the smartest guy on the floor almost all the time. He does organize your team on both ends in ways that help, and it's weird to me. Now, I'm not saying you play Draymond, you win that game. Like, he wasn't playing well and they weren't playing well. But it is weird. It is weird to just bench the guy.
Gary Payton II, I thought, was going to be riding the bench a lot of this year. I thought he'd be kind of a defensive specialist that would get spot minutes. And based on 14 minutes the last game, that's kind of been his number, right? Like 10 to 17 minutes, something in that range throughout this entire season. But I wouldn't mind seeing him play more. And I'll waffle my opinion. I'll switch my opinion based off what I've seen. I've been impressed, man. I think he looks healthy. He looks good. I mean, he doesn't put the ball in the bucket that much. That's not his game. I don't feel great when he's shooting threes, even if they're uncontested. I'm feeling just okay. But around the rim, the athleticism that he has, the way that he can play kind of the power forward position offensively and then defensively, almost guard every position at 6'4" with his long wingspan. I mean, there's a big part of that championship run in 21-22. He's still a young guy. Why not? Why not give him some more minutes? Because at least with Payton, you're going to get stability if he's healthy. Everyone else, some of these players, they're hot, they're cold, they're wishy, they're washy. Payton just kind of is who he is, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure who he is helps you a ton without Steph Curry out there, though.
Yeah.
I mean, the trick with that is now that you're desperate for scoring.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what the Steph injury does, right? Like, he's not hurt. With all due respect, the absence of Steph Curry doesn't crush your defense. It means that you go from a team that can light it up to a team that's desperate for scoring. And Gary Payton is yet another guy who, as you said, even a wide open three, like, you hope he makes it. He might make it, but you don't feel great about it. His best scoring is done at the basket, and I think that's gotten harder for him over the years as people know his game better. So, yeah, he does great things, and Steve Kerr loves him for exactly the reason you said, right? He knows exactly what he's going to get, and it starts on the defensive end. That's why he loves him, and that makes sense. But that skill set is going to be of less value, at least over the next couple games. And I think in general, who are you?
It's a good point.
It's always opportunity cost here, right? So, like, to get Payton over 14 minutes, are you bringing Moses Moody under 12? Is it coming out of Buddy Hield's minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just you evaluate game by game, right?
Right. I mean, they played 13
in yesterday's game or in Sunday's game. You need points. You're down 15 points with 8 minutes to go. That's not Gary Payton's time to shine. So
no, and that's why Hield is in there Even on a mediocre night for him, right? It's, well, maybe he can get hot because we need to have somebody put the ball in the basket. So it's just, look, without Steph Curry, there's going to be a lot of tough decisions to make.
Hot and cold in the NBA. Western Conference. The Los Angeles Lakers 3-0 right now. Thunder 3-0. And then cold right now in the Western Conference. The Jazz are 0-2 and the Sacramento Kings are 0-2. Subject to change at the time you're listening to this podcast, of course. In the Eastern Conference, the Cavs 4-0, the Celtics 4-0, and then the Pistons at the bottom at 0-4. But the Bucks off to a cold start too at 1-3. Anything from a holistic view of the NBA that has stood out to you thus far? 4, 3, some teams even. I think everyone's played 3 at this point.
Yeah, I think the Philadelphia 76ers are in real trouble already, which is weird. It's the whole thing there's weird, and I don't quite understand what's happening, but I don't think you make significant changes to a team that you expect to contend for a championship and then just kind of don't worry about how it works for a few months. That doesn't sound like a good plan to me.
Yeah, you want to come out of the gate. You want to get off to a hot start, not get this in every game.
Right. I also think, gosh, the Western Conference is just terrifying. And I know the Pelicans got whooped up by the Blazers, which is an odd result, but even those games against them without DeJounte Murray, they're still bringing Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson to town. You're just not going to have a lot of nights off in the Western Conference. And it was nice to start the season with 2 of them, but those might be the only 2 in the conference over the course of the season. So these, as silly as it is, these next 2 games without Steph Curry for sure against a arguably middling to mediocre team, they're important. You got to get at least one of them. You're not. Everything here is going to be decided by such a small margin. You cannot afford to slip too far behind too soon.
It's 4-game stretch coming up. It's 2 with the Pelicans back-to-back, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Correct.
Both of them at Chase Center in the Bay Area. And then right after that, it's the Houston Rockets on the road. That's on Saturday. Rockets 2-2 right now. And I think most people are expecting the Rockets to be pretty good. Maybe we'll see future Warrior Şengün. Fingers are crossed for those listening on the audio podcast. And then after the Houston Rockets, it's Jordan Poole, Corey Kispert, Washington Wizards time. So
they're terrible. That'll be nice.
This is a stretch where you'd love to go 3-1. You're missing Curry for a couple of them, but you'd love to go 3-1. 4-0 would be great. But
I'll tell you what, if they sweep the Pelicans, I don't think you're seeing Steph Curry until Boston. Which is the game. That's the game after Washington. Just if you can't beat Washington without Steph Curry, forget about it. And I could see them letting him sit a potentially winnable game, but also losable in Houston to get the extra game off against Washington and be ready for Boston. That feels like the most likely timeline to me. But look, even without him, there's no reason you can't win 3 of these games. These are not. You continue, the first 7 continue to be against teams that are not among the contenders. And those are the teams you're going to have to beat this year, even though obviously it didn't go well with the Clippers.
5-2, man. 5-2. You'd absolutely take it after the first 7. Golden State Warriors taking on the that's tomorrow. I'm getting my days of the week mixed up. So tomorrow we basketball again. Just like
Happy Monday, Chuck.
No case of the Mondays. Golden State Warriors play Tuesday, they play Wednesday, and then Saturday against the Houston Rockets. And of course, the post-game shows won't be here on Saturday to do the Rockets, but Tuesday, Wednesday, as soon as the buzzer sounds, Locked On Warriors has you covered. And then Eric Engel has you covered for another voice as well, covering the Warriors on our network, the Postcast podcast which is just a different voice. It's solo, and he gives his thoughts on the game. So if the 35-minute shows that Kolsky and I, Kylan and I, whoever and I do are not enough, you got Angle as well hopping on the show. So everyone, appreciate you for joining. Have a great day and a great rest of your week. Go Dubs.
Woo!